the stars are right, and that means it's time for another episode of The Whisper in Darkness. I'm your host, the Manfromleng. Thank you very much for joining me today. On this episode, we are wrapping up our look at the rogue cards in the Dunwich Legacy Investigator Expansion for the benefit of new players. We're going to take a look at Opportunist Level 2, Ace in the Hole, the Chicago Typewriter, and the Gold Pocket Watch. There are spoilers throughout if you care about that sort of thing. If you enjoy what you hear, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Just a quick reminder of how we rate cards here on The Whisper in Darkness. The best of the best get an Elder Sign, while the worst of the worst get an Auto Fail, and the cards in between get a +1, 0, or Elder Thing respectively. Cards that you build around or are good in one particular deck get a Bless token, while cards we believe are destined for the list of taboos or are simply bad for the game get a Curse token. Before we get started, I'd like to thank the patrons of this channel for their tremendous support. The Arkham Horror LCG community is amazing, and these people have gone above and beyond to bring you content like these player card reviews. If you'd like to support the channel's goals and see your name on this list, head over to patreon.com, sign up for a tier of your choice, and claim your rewards. That would be awesome. Special thanks to Cole Monroe Chitty for the amazing art that graces the channel, Nicole Fiscus for the new Whisper in Darkness logo that I use for the podcast, and Nate Lost in Time and Space for the intro as well as the overlays. Thank you very much. I couldn't do it without you. Without further ado, let's get started. Welcome back to our reviews of the player cards in the Dunwich Legacy Investigator Expansion. We're going to wrap up our look at the rogue cards in the box. This is part 4. We're going to start off with Opportunist Level 2. It is a skill with a wild skill icon, innate and developed trait. Commit only to a skill test you are performing. If you succeed by 2 or more, return Opportunist to your hand after this test instead of discarding it. So this is an upgrade for Opportunist from the revised core. Opportunist is basically the same as this, except you have to succeed by 3 or more, which is kind of tough for a lot of investigators. So it is nice that they drop the threshold by 2, or by 2, I should say. Really, the only kind of negative thing I have to say about this card is that you can only commit it to a test you are performing. So, but I do like this one a lot more than I like Opportunist from the revised core.
Yeah, agreed. It does what you want it to do versus Opportunist Level 0, which really asks a lot out of you.
Yeah.
It would be nice if this had a second wild icon, but I totally get why it doesn't.
Although I think for 2 XP, I think it kind of should have a second wild icon. Because compare this to Perception and Overpower and that Silk, that they draw you a card just for succeeding at all. And you can look at, I think I'm going back in time in my brain to, can we get some flashback music, to when we were discussing Opportunist. And I think we were discussing how Opportunist Level 0, it's kind of like it draws you a card, but that card is another Opportunist. It's another single wild skill icon. Yeah. But you had to succeed by 3 in order to get there. So this is kind of suffers from the same problem. You got to succeed by 2, and you're effectively drawing a card. It's just another Opportunist with a single wild skill icon. Whereas, like Perception, you don't have to succeed by 2, and it draws you a card. It's probably something else. This one feels right, but I really wish it was 0 XP.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, compare this to Quick Thinking.
Yeah, I feel like this should have been the 0 XP version. I think maybe back in, when they were testing the game, maybe succeeding by 3 was easier than it is. I just find that it's kind of difficult to succeed by 3 reliably, so you end up committing the Opportunist, and you're able to sort of pull it off once or twice, and then you end up losing it. I find with this one, at least, you can get a pretty good run, especially if you've got, if you're combining a lot of those succeed by 2 effects with Lucky Cigarette Case and stuff like that you can use this a few more times before you end up losing it.
Yeah, I could see potentially an issue if hypothetically they added a second wild skill icon, is that it is essentially a 1-card combo at that point, where it has the 2 icons to fuel itself, and then you're sort of like infinitely playing the Opportunist once per turn. And I could see that potentially being a problem, and maybe our view of this is slightly tainted now that we've seen skills with 4 wild icons and 7 agility icons or whatever nowadays. But
Yeah.
maybe back in the initial design of the game, they were definitely concerned about stuff like that a bit more.
Yes, being able to do something over and over it sounds scary, in the conceptual phase.
But yeah, I think as time has gone on, the designers have realized that recurring a skill card is not the end of the world.
I have to say that I really like the art on this card. I just like the fact that this woman is just robbing this place blind. It's just like, oh, here's this wine cellar. Just let me take a few bottles for myself.
This is like the classic Call of Cthulhu investigator move, if I've ever seen one. Oh, we're in a random building? Yeah, I'm just going to take everything I can hold in my grasp.
Like, obviously the agents of the mythos are not bearing down on this woman. She's just like, oh, what is this wine here? What vintage is this wine? No, I don't like this one. Put it back. Oh, there's a deep one over there? Just give me a sec.
Just give me a sec, guys.
On the subject of the art, I think as a whole, I really appreciate how connected all of the artwork in Dunwich feels. If that makes sense. Like in some of the other campaigns, the player card art is very disconnected at times from the actual scenario or from the actual campaign. And in Dunwich, like everything feels like you're in Dunwich. Like Quick Thinking has like a Shuggoth in the background, and Think on Your Feet has like tentacles from a Shuggoth coming from it. It's all very consistent. You feel like you're in Arkham. There's, Double or Nothing that has the gambling.
Oh, I see.
Right, like it all
La Bella
fits
Luna.
thematically. Yeah.
You're right. I see what you're saying. Like, I'm out of here in a forest.
So how would we rate Opportunist?
I'm going to give this a +1. This is a very solid card. If you're in that succeed by 2 or more archetype, this is really good. And even if you're not, I still think this is a pretty decent upgrade if you're willing to commit it to things that you're already very good at, say lockpicks or something along those lines. It's not bad.
I think I'd actually give this thing a 0 because I don't see myself playing this over Quick Thinking. I feel like Quick Thinking is more versatile. So imagine playing Quick Thinking, succeeding by 2, and then drawing a card. Or doing a host of other things for 0 XP. Yeah, whereas this is 2. I really wish this was 0 XP.
Yeah.
And it'd feel right. Yeah, it would feel right at 0.
Yeah, this is a tough one. I do like this card. I don't know if I like it enough, though, for +1. I like it in Winifred, but Winifred's already overcommitting, so...
Yeah, my argument is that like, what else are you buying with your experience as a rogue?
Nate, one of the rogue class features is that you get to spend XP lots all the time, for things like Hired Muscle and Lucky Dice and your Hot Streak, which the designers believe is core to the rogue experience.
And your Opportunist level 2.
Yeah, if you don't have XP for that, you've got to buy your Streetwise, because how are you going to play a rogue without Streetwise, as we were discussing earlier?
True. But hey, Opportunist combos with Streetwise, because you can commit it and then you're +4.
Yeah, I think you raise a good point, Mattastrophic. Given Dunwich's rather frugal approach to XP, I think rogues probably have better options than committing to Opportunist 2. I do like the card, and you can really get quite a bit of value out of it. It's great. I love playing this card and getting on a roll where I'm like, Opportunist, bang, back to my hand. Opportunist, bang, back to my hand. I love that feeling, but
like playing craps.
Yeah, it's and that feeling is really hard to do with the level 0 version, because it's often just like Opportunist. Oh, it's gone. You never get that feeling of getting it back to your hand. But I'm going to give this one a 0. I feel like I like it, but I don't necessarily know if it's the first thing I'm buying with my experience points. Rogues have received, they've got lockpicks, they've got the Derringer reprinted, cards like Sure Gamble, Hot Streak are all a little flashier than this one. And as your card pool grows, I think rogues get a lot more interesting skill options than this one. So it kind of it kind of ends up just being sort of falls by the wayside. But right now you don't really have a lot of options besides quick thinking, which is level 0 anyway. So yeah, as it pains me, but I think I'm going to settle on 0 for this one.
That's interesting. I don't know. I guess I'm pretty high on this card within the context of this card pool because, as we established earlier, like Streetwise is essential to a rogue's game plan, and
Yeah.
the fact that this combos with Streetwise really effectively is pretty appealing to me. But I could also see, like Hot Streak and Sure Gamble are definitely more powerful cards objectively, so.
If you have access to Lucky Cigarette Case, I think then Opportunist stock goes up.
Yeah, I think if you can combine this with other Succeed by 2 effects, I would be, this is a +1 for me because I think that fits into that deck very, very well. Yep. I just feel like outside of the Succeed by 2 deck, I just don't know if it's worth the XP, because I think at that point you're probably not playing Opportunist level 0 anyway, so you've got better options at that point. So picking up this is going to be well down the list of priorities when you've got other cards that are more interesting. You've got all the ones we mentioned. There's Cat Burglar in there. There's an extra Leo. There's Adaptable. There's some of the cards we're going to talk about here in a moment that also cost XP. So I agree. If this had been the level 0 version, that would have been ideal, but I guess we'll just have to play the hand we're dealt. Speaking of hands, we have Ace in the Hole. It is a free event that costs 3 XP. However, it is exceptional, so it will cost you 6. It has the trick trait, fast, play only during your turn. You may take an additional 3 actions this turn. This did end up on the list of taboos to add max once per round to it because players were playing this multiple times and getting tons and tons of actions and abusing it. What do we think about Ace in the Hole?
I love this card.
Yeah.
It's so cool. It's just,
first of all, that art.
The art is fantastic.
Yeah.
It's literally your Ace in the Hole in your deck, which is great because it's a one of. Just huge flavor win on that aspect. And power level aspect, it's man, is it good?
Yeah, this is how you turn a bad situation upside down and you pull victory from the jaws of defeat. Is with Ace in the Hole.
Because, that being said, though.
I
wouldn't. This is a card that you really have to plan around playing because there are certainly turns where taking 3 actions is not very fruitful. Like in the beginning, yeah, exactly. Like in the beginning of the game, for instance, when there isn't an enemy on board, those 3 actions essentially become like maybe I play something else, maybe I move to a location and investigate. Whereas like towards the middle of the game, once you've got your engine going, those 3 actions become like 9 actions.
Yeah, worth of effort. That's true.
Yeah. So it's not a card you want to play early in the game for sure. It's a card you play later in the game once you've got your engine going, you've got your your deck's doing what it wants to do. You play this and now all of a sudden you're killing a boss in a single turn, you're investigating that like 8 clue location, no problem in a single turn. Whatever it is your deck needs to do, it can do it.
One thing that's also really, really nice about Ace in the Hole is you don't have to play it until after you've taken your first 3 actions. So you get to a point where you go, I've just pulled a Nate special and I've drawn 3 auto fails in a row, and this is going to be the last turn of the game unless I get done things A, B, and C. Well, let's play Ace in the Hole and get things done. It's kind of like the power of Skids, being able to get extra things done whenever he wants. Well, you got Ace in the Hole to have a real power turn in order to, as I said earlier, pull victory from the jaws of defeat. That's what this thing's really good for.
I don't know how often I have played this card simply because of the 6 XP cost. And
that's the downside.
In Dunwich, that's a lot. That is a lot of XP.
Yeah.
And this card feels like the capstone. Like after you've got your lockpicks and your derringers and your other goodies. If you can get this into your deck, awesome. If you can't, well, that's okay too. But this is not the first card I would be upgrading to, because I don't think the 3 actions are going to do enough to improve your deck overall compared to some of the other cards that are available. It's good.
Yeah.
I just don't think it's like this card. This is the card that will make your deck the world beater. Lockpicks is the card that does that.
Yeah,
The
you got to get your
Derringer,
foundation down first before
stuff like
you can.
that. Or even
before Ace Level becomes
streetwise,
good. Yeah.
at this level, that's gonna be have I think a lot more impact than Ace in the Hole will.
Fortunately, all of those things you mentioned there that are going to have high impact, Ace in the Hole is kind of rounds it out. So like Ace in the Hole lets you, combined with Streetwise, lets you dump your zillion resources to get everything evaded and discover the remaining clues that are needed to advance the act. All in one turn before the doom clock ticks over and ends the game for you. That's what it's really for. It's like once you're set up to do high impact actions or to reliably succeed on tests, Ace in the Hole is how you get a lot of them done in one turn, because this is the one turn of the game where you actually have to get lots done in order to not lose.
How would we rate this one?
Now, this is a tough one because, like you were saying, it's not a card you just slam dunk auto include in your deck, because 6 experience is a lot. It's a lot. And like you were saying, Matt, you need to get your engine going before you maximize the utility of this card. So I don't know, it's kind of tough. I think I'll land on a 0. The power level is Elder Sign material for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But just the fact that it's only a 1 of in your deck and it costs 6 experience does put quite a damper on this, quite a bit. And then there's also just the fact that as written, without the taboo list, it is degenerate, which I don't like. So
we're not gonna talk about that.
I give it a little bit of a knock for that, but that's mostly a personal thing. It's personal. It's personal.
It's personal. You know what I will give it a knock for? That is a lot of white space that could be flavor text.
True.
I don't know. I kind of like that. It's just you can take 3 actions, and the card ability lets it speak for itself.
I think I'm gonna go with a 0 as well, because I don't see myself taking this before like I'm 20 XP into my deck. I gotta be honest. I've upgraded like everything else I've wanted to upgrade, and then this kind of like caps it off. And even then, it's still often a toss up between this and Hot Streak for what my deck actually wants more as like a capstone. Yeah.
I'm going to split the difference between an Elder Sign and a 0 and land on a +1. The effect is very strong, but like I said, this isn't the first thing I'm buying. This is after you've spent all your experience points on all the goodies to improve your deck. This is the cherry on top that you pick up to have that one mega turn that rogues are known for, and getting a lot done or finishing the game or something like that. And it's a nice to have, but not necessarily a need to have, I think, in a lot of cases. But it is awfully nice to be able to take that additional 3 actions sometimes to get the things done that need to get done. That brings us to the Chicago Typewriter, 5 cost asset that costs 4 experience points, 2 combat skill icons, item, weapon, firearm, and illicit traits, uses 4 ammo. As an action, you may spend 1 ammo fight. You may spend any number of additional actions when you perform this attack. You get +2 combat for this attack for each action being spent, including this ability's action cost. So when you trigger this, you get +2 combat. This attack deals +2 damage, and it takes up both hand slots. Don't think I've ever played the Chicago Typewriter as a solo player, but what do you guys think?
It's a little expensive, but that's pretty good, honestly.
Yep.
+2 and 3 damage, that's strong.
3 damage is very good. This is up there with like Lightning Gun and the Winchester that doesn't work very well, but also deals 3 damage. 3 damage is a very important threshold to pass, because that's a lot. A lot of weapons will deal 2, but this one does 3, and that's quite a bit. What really holds it back is the cost, but more importantly, the fact that it's 2-hand. We've been talking all video series about how important lockpicks are. and you can't have lockpicks and Chicago Typewriter in your hands.
Unless you have Bandolier.
Which we did talk about that early on, actually, about Bandolier for these sorts of situations. And you know what? Both Jids and Skids, Jids and Skinny, Skids, Skids and Jenny can both take the Bandolier. So maybe you've got the deck down there. You have Chicago Typewriter and Bandolier. And then you can hold your lockpicks, and you can hold your Chicago Typewriter.
And Jenny has her twin 45, so she is kind of already expecting to have both hand slots full. So
yeah, that's true. That's true.
I mean, it's no acidic ichor, but it's okay, I guess.
That's true.
It does have a fairly generous amount of ammo for a gun of this caliber. +2 with the option of spending an additional action to get another, I guess, as many actions as you want to spend to really boost up your combat. I don't know how many actions Skids is fighting at a 5. Skids and Jenny are both at a 5 with this thing. So, I don't know if I would spend additional actions rather than skill cards or resources. I think those are probably easier to come by than additional actions.
Even if you never actually spend additional actions, it's still good that ability's there.
Oh, so yeah. I like the fact that ability's there, because it gives you, it does give you that option, right? It's just like, okay, it's go time. We need to kill this thing. I'm running low on cards and cards and resources, where the Guardian is suddenly like, well, I'm just going to pray and pull from the Chaos Bag and hope I get a good token. The Rogue's like, okay, I've got this spare action, I'm going to use that to boost, to put me over the top. That's a nice option to have, even if you never have to use it.
Yeah, in the case of Skids, he can turn 2 resources into that extra action, which is essentially having Hard Knocks in play, which is still pretty useful.
Yeah, it helps you. It's really useful for those times when you you really have to land that shot, or else everything goes badly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is pretty good for that. I think if you're playing in a group with a Guardian in the group, though, this is kind of unnecessary, because it is a lot of XP and a lot of resources and a lot of hand slots. You're kind of really funneling yourself down, rogue in combat at that point. Basically, what I'm saying is you could be, if you have a Guardian in your group, this is not going to catch you up to them, but it's going to cost you a lot to get there. That being said, if you're playing like Skids as the primary monster slayer in your group, then this thing's pretty good.
I think we'd be remiss to not mention quick thinking, and this is C by 2 archetype. Since you can spend extra actions to get an additional +2, you can then combine that with some of your skill cards that you were already planning to use, like quick thinking, and then recoup that action.
Yeah, it's true. That's true.
There's some big brain plays with that ability, which is pretty neat.
How would we rate this one?
This is a pretty good weapon. Now looking back at this, I could see myself playing this today in a bunch of rogue decks. Tony comes to mind. But like Matt was saying, in the context of just Core and Dunwich, the Guardians are going to do a better job of killing the enemies at a more efficient rate than the rogues are. So that being said, and it takes 2 hand slots, which is also a pretty big burden to ask of the rogues. I'm going to give it a 0. It is really good. And if you're, like Matt was saying, if you're playing the Monster Slayer, this is the option you have, and it's a good one.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think a 0 is a good place for it.
Yeah, this is kind of a tough one because you're really committing to being the Monster Slayer by having this, because it takes up both your hand slots, and it's a lot of XP, and it's a lot of resources. Like, you kind of want to build your deck around this. At which point you could have been playing a Guardian instead. So that kind of weighs this card down, to be honest. I think by the numbers, the fact that it deals 3 damage, that is really good. Oof.
Skids can combine it with a Vicious Blow.
Oh yeah, and if you have Skids and Vicious Blow, then you're pretty set. Man, this is a tough one.
It's a good card. I think people have kind of slept on this card. I've certainly slept on this card.
Yeah, I think it's because, like, if I'm thinking about playing a card like this, then I end up playing a Guardian instead, That's kind of like the issue with it. Yeah, it's just tough. I think by the numbers though, it's probably a +1 because 4 ammo, 3 damage shots. That's pretty good. Like by the numbers. Yeah, I'll just go with +1 by the numbers.
I'm going to give this one a bless token. I think if you are committing 8 XP to this, you've got a plan for the Chicago Typewriter. You're probably playing skids. You're probably getting extra ammo, maybe contraband. I don't know. That seems like a lot there. You're paying nine resources for 8 shots. Maybe you can pull that off, but yeah, I think if you're going to invest the 8 XP in this, you're probably either the primarily in charge of enemy management, so that hand slot that you would use for lockpicks is not such a big issue. But yeah, this one feels like something you're building around for a purpose and not just saying, hey, I need a card. Oh, here's a good weapon. You know, this is one of the best rogue weapons in the game, but I don't think it's something you're just picking up just because. You've got to have a plan for this one. But like you said, Nate, I think, yeah, you know, just by the numbers, this is a really good weapon. You know, no real complaints. It's a little pricey, but man, oh man, +2 combat with the option of boosting that higher and +2 damage. Throw a vicious blow on there and 4 shots, and you're doing pretty well. That brings us to the final rogue card in the box that we're going to take a look at today. This is the Gold Pocket Watch. Stealing Time. 2-cost asset that costs 4 experience points. It is exceptional though, so it will set you back 8. It's got a willpower and wild skill icon, item, and relic traits. As a free triggered ability, when a phase begins, remove the Gold Pocket Watch from the game, skip this phase. Or as a free triggered ability, after a phase ends, remove the Gold Pocket Watch from the game, repeat that phase, and it takes up an accessory slot. I think if you are playing 3 or 4 player as the rogue and you did not pick up the Gold Pocket Watch, you may want to reconsider your experience points, because if Ace in the Hole will give you 3 actions, this will give you 12 in 4 player. I don't know if I've ever skipped a phase with this. I usually end up playing this just to give everybody another turn.
I have.
But I could see it.
Phase. Yeah, I think actually the most powerful thing you can do with it is skipping the Mythos phase, because that you skip the Doom placement and you skip the encounter card draws. But yet you still get the full investigator phase. You still get the upkeep phase, so you get to refresh all your stuff. I mean, the most famous use of the Pocket Watch is to repeat the investigator phase. But if you do it that way, you're missing out on refreshing and drawing cards and gaining resources.
I don't play multiplayer very often, but the last time I played multiplayer, I was one of the last times I was playing Finn. I picked up this card. I mean, it's awesome. I love this card. It's so good in when the player count creeps up above, into 3 and 4 for just the amount of stuff you get. It is exceptional, so, and rogues don't have the greatest draw right at this time. So, but the beauty of the Gold Pocket Watch is that it's not a card you want early. Like, this is a card that you can afford to play late game. So you draw it, you wait, get it down on the table when you've got the time. It's sitting there, ready to go. When you need it, you're good to go.
I'm curious on how this would compare to Ace in the Hole in solo, however. Is the added flexibility of skipping Mythos phase worth the 2 extra experience?
It's also that the accessory slot holds it down too.
Yes, it also does. This costs an action to play unless you're playing Joey the Rat.
Oh my gosh, you just gave me an idea, Nate. Bonus. So here's what you do with this. You have Joey the Rat out, right? And you play very innocently, and then you get to the end of the game and the players are like, "Oh no, we're about to lose." And then they go through the motions. It's like, "Oh, I guess we technically have to do our upkeep." And then during upkeep phase, you slam down the Pocket Watch and then you just, watch your friends look at you and a mixture of horror and jubilation as you pull the game out of the fire for them.
I'd say that if you were playing this over, I think Ace in the Hole is probably better in solo, simply because if you were using this to skip the Mythos phase in solo, Doom is often not an issue for the most part in scenarios. Sometimes it is. I mean, it was in my last game. I ended up dooming out, but I find dooming out is very rare in solo. Usually if you're fast enough and you're paying attention, Doom is not the thing that's going to kill you. So skipping the Mythos phase not to draw an encounter card, I think, is why you would trigger this. And I feel like I would prefer to have the 3 actions, in which case I would prefer to have Ace in the Hole, which is fast and I don't have to waste an action to play it, and I don't have to take up my accessory slot.
Yeah, you're probably right, because the power of Ace in the Hole is the fact that you can wait until you're in trouble to play it. Yeah, like if you've drawn an auto fail when trying to attack an enemy, and all of a sudden this enemy is right in front of you and is going to hit you in the enemy phase. Yeah, I guess playing Ace in the Hole to get those 3 actions right now is pretty good. Yeah, whereas Gold Pocket Watch, you have to like devote your accessory slot and have it out there in advance.
I think it becomes worth it at 2-player, but I'm curious what you guys think about it specifically in 2-player.
The accessory slot's still a problem. And the fact that you have to actually have 8 XP at any one time in order to actually buy this. You know, because think about it, like, it's already hard enough to justify Ace in the Hole in that you often have to save up more than an entire scenario's worth of XP, which means that is a whole scenario where your deck has not been improved in order to afford Ace in the Hole. Now imagine trying to be basically 2 scenarios behind on XP just to save up for the Pocket Watch. That's a lot.
Yeah, that's my biggest restriction with this card, is that 8 experience is a lot to ask.
Oh yeah.
For a card that you may honestly never see, because as the card pool stands right now, rogues don't have a lot of card draw. Mm-hmm. So you're really reliant on either spending your, the actions that you're generating off of like quick thinking and things like that to draw cards to hopefully find it faster, or that, the stars align and you just happen to draw it, and be able to play it.
I think that's why I primarily see this as a multiplayer card, because in multiplayer you have a little bit more flexibility than you do in 1 or 2 player. 1 or 2 player, you don't have a ton of, especially in solo, you don't have a ton of extra actions to be drawing cards. 2 player, maybe a little more time, but I think in 3 or 4, if you're the rogue and you have this and you're like, okay, we're sort of getting to the mid game, I think you might be able to find a turn or 2 in there where you can be like, okay, I'm going to commit a draw action here and there just to try to get this thing. I mean, Jenny does have the option of picking up Preposterous Sketches as well if she's playing a lot of these exceptional cards in order to draw them. But yeah, I know when I was playing this in the Iron Man, I think it was Path of Carcosa Iron Man, drawing it was never really a problem for Finn. But
well, if you have Lucky Cigarette Case, you can dig through your deck. It's just so much XP.
Yeah,
so much.
8 is a lot.
Yeah.
And even in that Iron Man, I remember, I think we were abusing Delve Too Deep in that one to gain extra XP. So it's not something that that's easy to afford. This is one of those cards that has a massive impact on the game when it hits the table. You're going to feel this one more than I think some of the other high XP cards in this game. How would we rate this one?
Wow, this one's tough. I mean, the power level is through the ceiling and beyond.
Mm-hmm.
It's really absurdly powerful, but it's also really expensive in experience and really difficult to find in your deck.
Yeah, it and not Sure Gamble, but Ace in the Hole the same way. They're very powerful, but they're also very expensive XP wise. So you got to think of all the things you're not including in your deck as a result. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like that's kind of the tug and pull with cards like this, is like, do you spend your experience on this kind of stuff to make your deck more explosive? Or do you spend your experience on things like Switchblade and Lockpicks to make your deck more consistent? Mm-hmm. And I think Arkham is a game that demands consistency over bursts of power. And I think to that point too is that those 3 actions that you gain potentially from the pocket watch, or the 12 in multiplayer, are going to be less impactful when you're only investigating at your base 3 versus investigating with your lockpicks or investigating with Streetwise. I think for that reason, and in the context of just Core and Dunwich, I'm going to give this a 0. Just, it's really expensive, and I think most of the time you're not even going to be able to play this card just because of that alone.
I agree, because of how much this sets your whole deck back by. So, like, if you didn't buy the pocket watch, if you instead bought a weapon upgrade, think about all those attack actions that would have been for extra damage that you're not taking because you took the pocket watch instead. I think if you were to play Jenny or Skids and you just like said no to combat altogether and you didn't spend any XP on, guns or anything to improve your combat abilities, I think this becomes more affordable. Like you just said, I'm going all in on lockpicks and Streetwise, and that's it. I think you can probably afford this. But I think the fact that it sets you back 8 XP, which is like it could sometimes be like half your XP, and if you're talking Dunwich, and then of course you have the problem of having to wait sometimes 2 whole scenarios before you can spend any XP if you want to play this. Yeah, I think that actually does bring this down to a 0. That being said, and if you play this in like a standalone, it's like it could be worth like
ridiculous in standalone.
Yeah, because in standalone, like your cost to put this in your deck is taking an additional weakness, and like just that's kind of worth it because of like you get the crazy plays, and like especially in 4-player where you're saying like, hey everybody, take 3 additional actions. See, because then you're giving up that XP to let everyone else's decks shine even more, and then they're all gonna love you, and that's a bit different. I think in general it's kind of a 0 though, because as amazing as it is also appropriately costed.
I'm going to split the difference again and go +1. I think the effect is so fun. Like, you slap this down in 4-player and it's just like high fives around the table. We're either skipping the Mythos phase, we're going to not draw any cards, or we're going to take our turns again. Good things are going to happen. It's just fun. The XP cost on it is very difficult to swallow, especially in Dunwich, unless you're using tricks to boost the amount of XP you're earning. This is one of those cards you've got to wait on. You're going to have to save up a bunch of XP to spend it. But man, oh man, if you can afford it, it's really, really good. And at this stage of the game, we don't have Lucky Cigarette Ks, so slot conflicts aren't a huge deal. So yeah, this is a fun card. Whew, that's going to do it for our look at the rogue cards in the Dunwich Legacy Investigator Expansion. Do you agree or disagree? Let us know in the comments down below. We always appreciate your feedback. Any final thoughts on these cards or the rogue cards in the Dunwich Legacy in total?
I think it's a mistake that we all didn't give the gold pocket watch an elder sign, because it literally has an elder sign on it.
I was tempted, but...
Oh, you're right. You know what? Bring the slide back up. Just slap those elder signs on there. Just so we can like say we've done it. Yeah, that's true. It literally has a gold elder sign on it.
I don't know. These are like some of the most fun rogue cards to this day.
Yes. Yeah.
Like they have,
because they didn't know what they wanted to do with the rogue yet. So the rogue is all over the place.
And a lot of these are still played to this day. Like, just a testament of the power level of some of these cards. Like Quick Thinking, Ace in the Hole, Gold Pocket Watch, Streetwise, Lone Wolf. These are really good cards.
Yeah.
Adaptable. I'd also be remiss to not mention adaptable. But then you have complete and utter stinkers. We have Contraband, which I don't remember if we said this in our review or not, but you can just play another copy of your weapon, right?
Yeah, that's totally true.
You can just buy another weapon. It's okay. And then, Think on Your Feet is, I think, an interesting effect, but not the greatest. And then Double or Nothing is just like, what the hell is that? I think what encapsulates the rogue card pool more than anything else is that it's very high risk, high reward, and it feels like a lot of fun to play. because you feel like a mad genius when it all goes off, but then when it all hits you in the face, you just want to thud the table.
Well, you've got I'm out of here for when your deck completely fails. You can just say I'm out of here, which is another one of the strangest cards like in the entire game. You mean I could just end the game early?
Yeah, rogues get a lot of really fun cards in this set. There are a few duds, and Double or Nothing, which I think was supposed to be in the fun side, it was supposed to be part of that fun rogue thing, and then it just kind of didn't work out that way. It just people the cost of playing it was just too easy to bypass, and so it just ended up all upside and no downside. But yeah, I mean, I've enjoyed playing cards like the Gold Pocket Watch, and I mean, I still like Lone Wolf is still a centerpiece of a lot of rogue decks to this day, and Streetwise had its time in the sun. I think it's maybe not played as much as it used to be, especially since it landed on the list of taboos, and it costs 6 XP now if you're playing that way. But yeah, like you said, they didn't quite know what way to go with the rogues yet, and so there's kind of a mishmash of combat and a little investigation and a little evasion and a little resource generation, and so it kind of is pulled in too many directions, I think. But still lots of fun stuff in this set for rogue players. That's going to do it for this episode. If you enjoyed what you hear, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. If you need to contact me, I can be reached at manfromleng@gmail.com. I'm also on Twitter at manfromleng. Until the stars are right, keep your shotgun close and your elder sign closer. Take care out there, and happy investigating.